getting a great name for your favorite character that you're gonna use, potentially forever and ever and ever, for your writing, for your role-playing. When you're new, you want a wonderful name because this is gonna be your main character, or this is gonna be you, and it's gonna be for years and potentially decades, and maybe even if you're making some project for publishing forever in a way. So, how to get a really good name? Not just something that feels right, that will be nice to the readers, but something that for you has meaning, has depth, has the tone, the sound, the air, the everything. It's everything you ever wanted from a name for your character. And yet you're new. So, I'll teach you how to do it in less than 3 minutes. And you'll be able to fulfill all these requirements that much more senior writers and creators grapple with occasionally. It's a bit simplified version, but that's why we're doing it so shortly, so that you can do it easily when you're new and that it still holds up. So how? Well, first remember several examples of such names from characters that you like so much that they represent what you want with this one. So remember this show, that book, this movie, etc. And make a note of these names. You can write them down. It doesn't matter what languages, do the best you can. You can do some research if you have the time, but if we're doing this in 3 minutes, it's enough to just write them down letter by letter, how they sound to you. Next, you think to yourself back when you were watching, listening, reading, what was it that inspired you so much about the name? Now, it could be the personality and so on, but what about the name? How did it play into that? Because lots of these famous things that you've seen, they are well researched. So the sound of the name, the spelling, the writing, the history, the background, the more you know, the better, all plays into psychological elements and historical elements and references that are good for this type of character. And you want to, if not understand all of this at once, you do want to remember how it felt, which sounds, which spellings, which results intrigued you the most and are most memorable. Because the ones you remember easily and love to think about, those are the ones you want to keep. Except, of course, we're going to not copy-paste some name from somewhere, because that would be recognized. What we're gonna do is now, from several of these, create a new one that feels exactly like one of those. In fact, a perfect mix. You're gonna take 2 letters from here, 2 letters from here, 2 letters from here, and make the thing that sounds like all of them, but try to keep it as trim, as dynamic, as high quality as what you've heard. You don't want it to make it too long and to make both name and last name be super filled out with references of the things that you've heard. No, you want to keep it to what you feel is a perfect minimum that satisfies you, that you want to be keeping for as long as you can, maybe forever, as I said. You want to get it down to that. And it doesn't need to be obvious. It doesn't need to be something that other people should recognize. You don't need to name all stuff, moon, shadow, the dark, whatever. Don't do that unless absolutely necessary for the concept, and even then trim it down some. Or change it up a bit. The idea is when the things sound properly, and believe me, when they're well researched, they do sound properly because people have used these words for thousands and thousands of years because they remind them of these things and feel right. So you don't have to have references that people actually recognize. It's enough to have the sounds do the reference for you and have extremely obscure references that people don't recognize. Why? Because they'll remember, like you did, because it sounds so right, and then one day they'll research it. And if they don't, it doesn't matter because they'll still have it as memorable as anybody else back in the day when we couldn't just research it. So that's the idea behind the names. And this is how you'll have a perfect one. Just keep it to that ideal that sounds like that to you, yet it's original enough. And yes, you can and potentially should research the meaning and see whether the meaning is certainly somewhat fitting to your thematics at least, and whether its publicness versus obscurity is fitting to your concept as well. And you don't need it to be an actual word anywhere on Earth, because you can give it as much meaning as you want. And you don't need to jump to the opportunity to explain those meanings at every corner. Just let it all unfold through dozens and dozens of uses of the name, and then one day when it's pertinent to tell what the meaning is in the ancient language of this and that, then you can. But it doesn't matter as much as that it worked till then, thus far, by itself, without elaboration. So, whilst it took me a bit to say this is all indeed doable in 3 minutes. Possibly less, possibly more, depending on how much you want to go into it. But this is how you can have unique names for your fantasy art or role-playing characters, and you will not be stranded anymore looking for a name generator hoping that it will give you a good one. So adventure, if you thought this was unique, maybe you can spare me a click and I could see you here next, and perhaps even every week, because I have every week more unique stuff for you. I'm Em, and welcome to the dMTable. See you next time.